While helping him with bills, I stumbled upon a second bank account. The transactions were strange. Gifts, dinners, hotel stays. None of them involved me. He doesn't know I've seen it yet, and I'm deciding whether to expose him or let him dig his own grave. The paper slipped from the stack and landed face up on the table. My eyes caught the unfamiliar account number instantly, bold at the top of the page, almost daring me to read further. I leaned closer, scanning the transactions, and my stomach tightened. A string of charges appeared. Lavish dinners at restaurants I had never visited, jewelry purchases from stores I had never stepped into, and hotel stays that had no place in our shared life. Each line was a silent confession, and I felt the room tilt around me. I gripped the edge of the table, forcing myself to breathe. The hum of the refrigerator filled the silence, steady and indifferent, while my world cracked open. I flipped through the pages, hoping for a mistake, a misprint, anything that could explain what I was seeing. But the dates matched nights he had claimed to be working late. The amounts were extravagant, far beyond what he ever spent on me. My hands trembled as I traced the ink, each number cutting deeper than the last. Memories surged, uninvited. Nights when he came home past midnight, his tie loosened, his excuses rehearsed. The faint scent of perfume that wasn't mine clinging to his jacket. The lipstick mark I once laughed off as a colleague's hug. I had brushed it all aside, convincing myself it was stress, deadlines, or harmless encounters. But now, those fragments stitched together into a picture I could no longer ignore. I pushed the papers aside and stood abruptly, pacing the kitchen. My heart raced, my mind spinning with questions. Was I imagining things? Was I being unfair? I picked up the statement again, forcing myself to read every line. A necklace from a jeweler. A weekend stay at a hotel just outside town. My chest tightened. Whoever was on the receiving end of these gestures was living a life I had been denied. The sound of the front door opening jolted me. He walked in, smiling faintly, carrying a bag of groceries. "Long day," he said casually, setting them down. I forced a smile, sliding the papers under a stack of mail. He didn't notice. As we cooked dinner together, I studied him. The way he moved, the way he avoided eye contact when I asked about his day. He spoke of meetings, deadlines, and a colleague's birthday celebration. His words flowed easily, but I heard the gaps, the places where truth had been replaced with rehearsed lines. Later that evening, I excused myself to the bedroom, pretending to be tired. I pulled the papers out again, reading them under the soft glow of the lamp. My chest ached, but my resolve hardened. I would not let him know yet. I would watch, wait, and gather more. That night, lying beside him, I listened to his steady breathing. It sounded almost cruel in its calmness, as if he slept peacefully while my world unraveled. I stared at the ceiling, replaying every moment of our marriage, every promise, every smile. The sting of betrayal pressed down on me, heavy and suffocating. I remembered a small incident from months ago. He had come home late, claiming traffic had been terrible. His shirt had been wrinkled, his tie loosened, and there had been a faint lipstick mark near his collar. I had laughed it off, teasing him about sloppy colleagues. He had chuckled, kissed my forehead, and changed quickly. At the time it seemed harmless. Now it screamed at me, demanding to be seen for what it was. The next morning I moved through the house with quiet determination. I checked his jacket pockets, his briefcase, even the glove compartment of his car. Small clues emerged. Receipts from places I had never been, a hotel key card tucked away, long expired but damning nonetheless. Each discovery added weight to the truth I was piecing together. I began to keep a notebook, jotting down dates, times, and details. It felt strange, almost like I was building a case against him. But I knew I needed it. If I confronted him, I wanted to be armed with more than suspicion. Days passed, and I carried the secret like a stone in my chest. He laughed, joked, and kissed me goodbye each morning, unaware that I was watching him more closely than ever. Every smile felt hollow, every touch rehearsed. I wondered how long he thought he could keep this hidden. One evening, as we sat watching television, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it quickly, then turned it face down on the table. My eyes caught the name flashing across the screen, a woman's name I didn't recognize. He noticed my glance and smiled nervously. "Work stuff," he muttered. I nodded, pretending to believe him, but inside the puzzle grew clearer. I didn't confront him. Not yet. Instead, I leaned back, feigning indifference while my mind raced. The account, the receipts, the perfume, the phone calls, it all pointed to one truth. but I wanted him to reveal it himself. That night as he drifted off to sleep, I lay awake again. The silence of the room pressed down on me, broken only by the rhythm of his breathing. My thoughts swirled: anger, sadness, disbelief. I felt betrayed, but I also felt something else: strength. For the first time I realized I held the power. He thought he was hiding something, but I already knew. And so I decided. I would wait. I would let him dig his own grave, one careless lie at a time. Until then, I would carry the secret, watching, listening, and preparing for the day when the truth would no longer be his to control. His steady breathing beside me had lulled the house into silence, but my mind refused to rest. I lay there, staring into the dark, knowing that the secret I carried was mine alone. That was the moment I decided. If he thought he could hide, I would learn to watch. Quietly. Patiently. Without him ever suspecting. The next morning I moved through the kitchen with deliberate calm. He scrolled through his phone as he sipped his coffee, thumb moving quickly, screen tilted away from me. I noticed how he angled it just slightly, as though shielding it from my view. I smiled faintly, pretending not to care, but inside I marked it down. Later, when he left for work, I opened my notebook and wrote: phone guarded. Morning coffee. Screen tilted. Each detail felt small, but together they built a picture. I confided in no one. Not even my closest friend, who would have seen through my forced cheer. I couldn't bear the thought of pity, of whispered advice, of someone telling me to leave before I was ready. This was my burden, my investigation, and I would carry it alone. Days blurred into weeks and I became sharper, more observant. I noticed how he lingered in the car after pulling into the driveway, finishing calls before stepping inside. I noticed how his excuses grew more polished, his tone rehearsed. Late meeting, he'd say, loosening his tie. Client dinner, he'd mutter, dropping his briefcase by the door. I nodded, smiled, and tucked the words away like evidence. One afternoon I followed him. He had said he'd be working late, but something in his voice had sounded too smooth, too practiced. I waited 10 minutes after he left, then slipped into my car. My hands gripped the steering wheel tightly as I trailed him at a distance. He drove across town, past the office, past the places he usually mentioned. My pulse quickened when he pulled into a restaurant parking lot. I parked far enough away to remain unseen. My heart pounded as I watched him step out, straighten his jacket, and walk inside. A few minutes later, a woman appeared. She was younger, dressed elegantly, her smile warm as she greeted him. They entered together and I stayed hidden, my breath shallow. I didn't need to see more. The truth was already unfolding before me. I sat there for nearly an hour, staring at the restaurant's glowing windows. Shadows moved inside. Laughter drifted faintly when the door opened for other guests. I imagined their conversation, their smiles, the way he leaned in as if she were the center of his world. My chest tightened, but I refused to cry. Instead, I pulled out my notebook and wrote: restaurant. Woman unknown. Entered together. When I returned home, he was still out. I walked through the quiet house, touching the back of the chair he always sat in, the jacket he had left hanging carelessly. The faint scent of perfume clung to the fabric, not mine, not familiar. I pressed my face against it for a moment, then pulled away stronger. The clues began to pile up. Receipts tucked into his pockets from places I had never been. A hotel key card slipped between papers in his briefcase. Withdrawals from the secret account, timed perfectly with his absences. Each discovery deepened my resolve. I was no longer searching for proof. I was building a case. One evening as he showered, I opened his wallet. Inside was a folded receipt from a jewelry store. The date matched a night he had claimed to be stuck in traffic. My fingers trembled as I unfolded it, reading the description: gold bracelet with charm. I closed my eyes, remembering how he had come home that night empty-handed, tired, irritable. No bracelet for me. No charm meant for my wrist. I slipped the receipt back into his wallet, careful not to disturb anything. My reflection in the mirror startled me. Eyes sharper, jaw set, a woman transformed. I was no longer the naive wife who trusted blindly. I was becoming someone else, someone who would not be fooled again. The investigation became part of my daily rhythm. I checked his jacket pockets when he wasn't looking. I noted the times he left and returned. I studied his expressions, the way his smile faltered when I asked casual questions. How was dinner? I'd ask lightly. Fine, he'd reply too quickly. I'd jot it down later. Dinner. Fine. Smile forced. One night as we sat together watching television, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then turned it face down on the table. I caught the flicker of unease in his eyes. "Work," he muttered. I nodded, pretending to believe him, but inside I felt the puzzle tightening. I began to test him subtly. "Who called?" I asked once, feigning curiosity. He hesitated, then said, "A colleague." His voice was steady, but his hand gripped the armrest too tightly. I smiled, letting the silence stretch, then changed the subject. Later I wrote phone call. Hesitation. Grip tight. Despite the pain, I felt strength rising in me. Each clue, each observation, each note in my journal sharpened me. I was no longer the woman who laughed off lipstick stains or perfume on a jacket. I was someone who saw clearly, who listened carefully, who waited patiently. One evening I followed him again. He claimed he had a late meeting, but I watched as he drove not to the office but to a hotel. My breath caught as he parked, stepped out and entered. Minutes later the same woman appeared, her hair catching the light as she walked inside. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel, my chest heavy but my resolve unshaken. I didn't need to confront him yet. I needed him to believe he was safe while I gathered everything. I returned home before him, sitting in the quiet living room, the lamp casting a soft glow. I opened my notebook and wrote, "Hotel. Same woman. Entered together." My hand was steady, my heart strong. The investigation was no longer just about him. It was about me, about reclaiming the power I had once surrendered. I carried the burden alone, but it no longer crushed me. It fueled me. I was sharper, stronger, and ready for whatever truth would come next. The notebook lay open on the table, its pages filled with dates, places, and details written in my careful hand. The receipts were spread beside it, the hotel key card placed like a final piece of evidence. I sat in the quiet living room, the lamp casting a warm glow over the scene, waiting for him to walk through the door. My heart was steady, my resolve unshakable. Tonight there would be no more silence. The sound of his car pulling into the driveway reached me first. I didn't move. I listened to the door open, the shuffle of his shoes, the familiar sigh as he set down his briefcase. He walked in, smiling faintly as though nothing in the world was amiss. "You're still up?" he asked, loosening his tie. "Yes," I replied evenly, my voice calm. "I was waiting." He glanced at the table, at the papers laid out like a trap, and froze. His smile faltered, his eyes darting from the receipts to my face. "What's all this?" he asked, trying for casual, but his voice cracked. I didn't answer immediately. I let the silence stretch, heavy and suffocating. Finally I said, "It's everything you thought I'd never see." His face shifted quickly. First shock, then anger, then something softer, almost pleading. "You don't understand," he began, reaching for the papers. I pulled them back before his hand could touch them. "I understand perfectly," I said. My voice was steady, but inside I felt the storm raging. "Lavish dinners. Jewelry. Hotels. Lies. I understand more than you think." He tried to laugh, but it came out hollow. "Business dinners. A client needed help. That's all." I leaned forward, my eyes locked on his. "Do clients wear perfume that lingers on your jacket? Do clients leave lipstick on your collar? Do clients meet you at hotels?" His mouth opened, then closed. He looked down, his hands trembling slightly. "It's not what you think," he whispered. "It's exactly what I think," I replied. My calmness unnerved him more than shouting ever could. I refused to cry, refused to give him the satisfaction of seeing me broken. Instead, I let the weight of my silence crush him. He sank into the chair across from me, his shoulders slumping. "I made mistakes," he said finally, his voice low. "I didn't mean to hurt you." I stared at him, my heart cold. "Mistakes are forgetting an anniversary. Mistakes are being late for dinner. This is betrayal." He buried his face in his hands, muttering excuses. "She needed me. She was going through something. I was just helping." I shook my head slowly. Helping doesn't cost thousands of dollars. Helping doesn't require secrecy. Helping doesn't destroy trust. The silence between us stretched again, thick and suffocating. I could see the panic in his eyes, the realization that his carefully built lies had collapsed. "I can change," he said suddenly, his voice desperate. "I'll stop. I'll fix this. Just give me another chance." I stood, gathering the papers into a neat stack. "No," I said firmly. You don't get another chance. You had every chance and you chose betrayal. He rose quickly, reaching for me. Please, he begged, his voice breaking. Don't leave. We can work through this. I stepped back, my eyes never leaving his. You don't get to decide anymore. I do. And I've decided I will no longer play the fool. His face crumpled, anger flashing briefly before fading into defeat. He knew the evidence was undeniable. He knew the power had shifted. I walked to the door, my steps steady. He followed, pleading, but I didn't turn back. Betrayal has consequences, I said quietly, opening the door. And this is yours. The night air was cool against my skin as I stepped outside. I felt lighter, stronger, free. My revenge was not loud or violent. It was the quiet strength of walking away with dignity. I didn't slam the door. I didn't shout. I simply left, carrying with me the knowledge that I had seen the truth and chosen freedom. As I walked down the street, the stars above seemed brighter, the air fresher. I thought of the lesson etched into my heart. Secrets always surface and betrayal never wins. I reached the corner and paused, looking back at the house that had once been my home. The light in the living room still glowed, casting shadows against the walls. He stood inside, alone, surrounded by the evidence of his lies. I turned away, my steps firm, my heart strong. The reckoning was complete.